Good morning, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Welcome to MamaMagic Live. It's been a while since we've had a live, but really excited to have you all join in. We've got some really great topic at hand for you today. So be sure to stay tuned. I'm sure this is going to give you a lot of relief as a parent. As a parent myself, I understand the difficulties we have when it comes to feeding our kids, giving them good nutrition, not wanting to eat vegetables, and all sorts of other guilt that we go through as parents, and trying to just satisfy sometimes really fussy eaters. My name is Warren Murray. I'm the brand director at MamaMagic. I'm also a father of two, and it's really great to have you all with us this morning. This morning we're going to be handing over to Tasha Lee. Many of you will know her as an influencing voice in the parenting space, and she's going to have a very interesting conversation this morning with Anne-Marie de Beer. She is a registered dietitian and works on behalf, and will be speaking on behalf of Nestle Baby and Me. So we're really excited to be having this conversation with her this morning. I'm going to get Tasha Lee onto the live, and we'll get into it. And here we go. One is this morning, so let's find out from Tasha Lee. If you've got any questions about today's topic, please feel free to drop them into the question box below, and Tasha Lee will be able to assist you and go through those questions as and when she's available. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Warren. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Who don't know you, won't you just give us a quick introduction in terms of who you are, so that they all can come and follow you after this live?
Okay. So I'm Tasha, and I'm a mom blogger over at Tasha Lee CPT. I'm a solo parent to my little boy, who's now 2 years old. And yeah, I'm so excited to be chatting to Anne-Marie today
Awesome.
about important topic. I think it's something that is so commonly asked about, but finding support for it can be a bit challenging as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not going to be in the live, so thankfully you won't be speaking to me. I have no expert knowledge when it comes to this, other than being a challenged father in the same field. So I'm looking forward to handing you over now to Anne-Marie from Nestle.
Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Hi, Anne-Marie. How are you?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm good, thank you. I'm not sure if you want to maybe give an introduction to everyone of, who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Anne-Marie de Beer. I'm a registered dietitian, and I've been in practice for, well, almost 30 years. In fact, over 30 years now. I've got two children. I'm fortunate that they are now out of the house and they're big. But yeah, I understand what many parents are going through, especially when the babies are still young. And especially in their toddlerhood, I think there's often a number of challenges. Currently, I'm the Nutrition, Health and Wellness Manager at Nestle. I'm also responsible for Nestle for Healthier Kids.
Okay, wow, that's awesome. Thank you again for taking the time to chat to us this morning about this topic. And the topic, if you've just joined, welcome to everyone. The topic is how to increase nutrition in toddlerhood and at the same time decrease parent guilt, because I have a 2-year-old toddler and I know that, food, nutrition, diet can be a roller coaster ride. So, yeah. So to get into the questions, I think with parenthood, there is a lot that we have to juggle. There is, work, home, family, and then grocery shopping. You go to the shop, you buy, you make a meal, and then, your toddler doesn't always end up eating what you make. So how would you suggest, or where would you suggest parents actually start with the task of getting kids to eat healthier?
So I think perhaps to start quite early, when babies are born, and I often say this to moms, the baby's born, and once you hold that little bundle, there's a lot of love. You can't believe you've got all this love for this baby. And at the very same time comes the guilt part to this as well. And you're wondering, am I doing enough? Am I a good enough mom? Am I a good enough parent? There's so many questions that comes with that. And with that comes the nutrition question. And I always, when I talk about this, it's very important to understand that we don't have control over this baby or your toddler even. The only thing that we've got control over is food and the nutrition. If you think about it, small baby, they cry, they have dirty nappies. wet nappies, you don't have any control over that. Even as toddlers, you don't have control over the child, but you have control over the nutrition. And that, I think, is one of the sources of concern for parents very often. So where do we start? The first thing is to perhaps just remember that what you do because you love your child. And no parent is doing anything deliberately to harm their children, especially when it comes to nutrition. I do think, however, the challenge that we have very often is that we don't know. As parents, we don't know about nutrition. We hear a lot of things, and then there's all sorts of fads that's going around, and should I put my child on this or not? And that, for me, I think, is the biggest challenge that we have. So where to start is really to go and find good nutrition information. So the Nestle Baby and Me has got quite a few nutrition support pages for mothers, especially with toddlers, because that's often where the problem not really starts. It can start much earlier, but very often in toddlerhood, this is where the kids are struggling to eat the veggies. They don't want to eat what you put in front of them, and you kind of just throw your hands in the air and give them whatever they want.
Yeah.
So where do we start? We first start reading, and I really want to encourage the parents to go and read, go and find good nutrition information. Don't read everything on Dr. Google. Rather, if you can, go and speak to a registered dietitian, or, like I've mentioned, go to websites that are reputable websites that will give you good nutrition information.
Yeah, because there's a lot of conflicting information, obviously, online, and then there's a lot of solutions, and all the information can be a bit overwhelming. Yeah, and then there's also the issue of, your child's behavior is kind of seen as a reflection of you as a parent, and, learning not to be so hard on yourself as a parent because your best is enough. So, yeah, so guys, if you want to send in any questions, you can just send it in on the comment section of the live. I do have a question here that was sent in. So this mom is asking, my toddler child can play this maddening game. We'll ask for something. Then when I give it to him, he doesn't want it. I know this is a control issue, but what should I do?
Yeah, and it could be a game, and they just want to see how far they can stretch you. I think we also must understand that toddlers are there to push the boundaries, and that's what toddlers do. So that's the first thing. Just understand it. It's almost normal behavior. But I often think that when this happens is really when the toddler wants your attention. And this is a way of getting your attention. Unfortunately, this often happens when you're busy in the kitchen, or you're very busy at that moment. You don't have the time. But my recommendation would really be, or my suggestion would be, that take this child, put him on your lap or her on your lap, speak for a few minutes, and actually take them out of that environment where they're continuously asking for something, even if it means just going outside. If you do have a garden, go and walk in the garden and let's go and see what's outside. Or if it's a balcony, let's go and just see what's there. But just take them out of the environment and take the attention of what they were pestering you with, because I think that's just what they do. So we also can't get angry at them for doing that. But yeah, in my opinion, it's often just a call for attention.
Yeah, that is actually really good, because taking them away from that triggering environment actually just kind of distracts them and puts their focus on something else. And yeah, and I think that toddlers also, every toddler goes through the phase where they have to find their own preferences and their own likes and dislikes when it comes to food as well. But it's difficult, and I'm not sure how would you suggest a parent deals with wastage when it comes to food preferences of the toddlers.
So I think there's a few things around food preferences for toddlers. It's very important that we introduce them to novel foods. There's a thing called food neophobia, which really means that, and as us as adults also suffer from this thing, that there's certain foods we just don't touch because it's new to us. The other day I was talking about insects and eating mupani worms. So for some people in our country, that's a delicacy. For others, you cannot think about actually putting it in your mouth. And yet, once you have it, it's actually not so bad after all. So it's very important that we understand that toddlers also have this phobia of new foods. So as soon as you start with introduction of solid foods, all of those things, it's important that we start with a variety of foods. And I always recommend to moms, start with foods that you almost know they won't eat. So the green veggies are the ones that they don't really like very much. They will eat pumpkin and they will eat carrots, but the green veggies are extremely important for our children because it provides a whole lot of vitamins and minerals that we don't get in the yellow veggies. So importantly is when you do this, there's two things that you can do. The one is to give them something that they like and give them this new food. And you know, sometimes you have to introduce this new food up to 20 times before they start liking it or before they start eating it. And you can play around with either giving it fresh. Often the kids, and I find that with toddlers, like raw veggies. So instead of cooking it into a pulp, rather just give them the cauliflower or the broccoli was what I was trying to remember now. Give the little florets to them. So once we do that, they can also touch it, they can feel it. And remember, these kids are working with their senses at this stage. So it's very important that they can eat with their hands. So then your question around food wastage is really important. After you've spent a whole evening or afternoon cooking for your child and you've done this great dish and they won't touch it. So there's two things again here. What we've realized is when kids become part of the cooking process, they are invested in eating. So they invested in this meal and therefore they will eat it. And this is really a recommendation I want to give to parents there, is make sure that when you are cooking food, and it's possible, I mean, depending on the age of the child, but make them part of it. If you are going to cook broccoli, by example, give them a few florets. If they're still sitting in a high chair, put it there next to you and let them play with that and see what it is that you are doing. Obviously with heat, you have to consider the safety measures, but there's a few things that you can do. If you make a salad, for example, they can add it to the salad and it's their salad that they've made and therefore they will eat it. So bringing the children into the cooking environment is extremely important. Then the other thing that's important is we need to give them small portions. I think as parents, we often forget that these kids have got very small stomachs. And a toddler is a grazer. They eat throughout the day. And often parents will say, my child doesn't eat a thing. And I remember some years ago, I said to a friend, I'll tell you what, just keep a diary for 5 days. Tell me everything the child puts in her mouth at the time. And 5 days later, she called me and she said, I didn't realize how much this child is eating during the day. So come mealtime, she's not hungry. So we must understand that they're grazing. So they will not eat a lot of food at a particular meal time. So make sure you've got a small plate, small portions, really small portions. It could be a tablespoon, it could be half a tablespoon. And then if they like it, they will ask for more. And with that, you are actually reducing the food wastage immediately. They're going to eat your food and you'll feel much better. And that guilt factor is also reduced because you've now actually, you can feel that you've done something good for your baby.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I like what you said with introducing the familiar food and then the unfamiliar food as well with that, because that also then will help them to actually try it out and see. Because I know my toddler, he also likes when it's in a familiar shape. So I'll maybe make French toast or something and he will, you know, he will enjoy that. And as soon as I give him something totally different that doesn't look like that, then, you know, he doesn't want to try it. But as soon as I put it in the same form, then he would be encouraged to eat. So, yeah. Okay, I think there is a question here. I have a 10-month-old who absolutely loves his food and will eat just about anything I give him. But I'm now wanting to know how I should adapt my boy's food once he turns 1. Okay.
Good. So from the age of 1, they can really start eating what you as a family is eating. Hopefully they are already doing some of that. It's now about texture and variety, and that's really, really important. So the basis of what they eat, like the cereals, whether it's a toddler cereal that's fortified, which really remains very important for them, and milk that they still drink is very important. That still forms quite a large portion of the good nutrition. But from a year onwards, it's really important that you make sure that you eat as a family together. And maybe that's the one thing that I missed out on earlier. You'll get children to eat, and especially toddlers, to eat much better when you eat as a family together. And unfortunately, in our country and really in society today, meal times is fading away. Everybody's just grabbing something as they come home, sit in front of the TV and quickly have their meal. And often we give the children food earlier because we as the parents are going to eat much later. But if I can really recommend, try and have at least one meal a day as a family. Whether that's now breakfast, lunch or dinner, doesn't really matter when, but make sure you have it as a family, and you'll be surprised at the amount of food that this child is going to eat with you as the family. Also, children shouldn't eat in front of the TV. And I know this is a typical thing that we do. We give them the plate and we hope they're going to eat because now they're watching the show that they like on TV, and they feed, and maybe we still feed them, but because they're watching, we can feed them. We must be careful for two reasons for that. The one is they don't realize what they're eating, and they also don't realize how much they are eating. So instead of food and nutrition becoming this great opportunity and this family occasion, we are now just overfeeding very often. And if you think about yourself, if you sit in front of the TV and you eat, you don't realize how much you are eating. And the same goes for children. So I think that's very important. So for this 1-year-old, please, no eating in front of the TV. If you don't have a dining room or a table in the kitchen, switch off the TV, put a blanket on the floor and make it a picnic. But try and really be as a family together. It is really, really important. For this 1-year-old, this is the time when they begin to also see what does table manners look like. How do I use a fork or a spoon? And they can still eat with a spoon, and that's perfectly fine. But they are mimicking the parents.
Yeah.
And if they don't have that example, it's very hard to get them to eventually be able to eat properly with a knife and fork because they don't get the example from home. So that's really important. So a variety of food is really important. Make sure you eat together as a family. And then the texture must now, and it's really important around texture because they have most of their teeth by now. So importantly, they need to start chewing. And if we keep on giving them very soft food, they get to a point where they actually don't want textured foods. And that's a problem that we as parents really don't want to struggle with. You don't want a 3-year-old that still eats mushy food all the time.
Yeah, that is important. And I think the meal times, I like what you're saying with modeling the meal times and table manners and just, generally eating, because it's also an opportunity for to develop language and encourage language around the meal time as well, which is something we like to do. We like to have conversation around the meal time. We like to talk about the food, even the flavor. Is it crunchy? Is it delicious, and all of those things. So I think it becomes a fun opportunity for developing language as well.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's just on that. One of the things that you as parents can do, and if you're still at home and working from home, maybe you've got a bit more time, I'm hoping, but to make placemats with blocks and colors and shapes. And that becomes an educational and stimulation opportunity. This is red, this is green, all of those kind of things then becomes part of this mealtime. I mean, you obviously can buy some of these placemats as well, but to make them at home and you throw them away afterwards, you make it on paper, but that gives this kind of, it gives it its own authenticity and you with the kids. And yeah, I think there's so many opportunities.
Sorry, you just got out a bit there on the end of what
Sorry.
you were on the last bit. I'm not sure if it's my side or your side.
No, it was this side. Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay. So you were saying that you can basically just use it as an opportunity for stimulation as well, including fun placemats and things like that.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's awesome. There's not always time to do it, but I think prioritizing even just once a week or 2-3 times a week. Okay. The next question is about snacks. So there's a lot of guilt around using snacks to bribe toddlers for cooperation. I think this maybe ties in with the first question a bit. But yeah, what would you suggest is then another way to reach cooperation with your toddler when it comes to meal times, especially?
And not bribing them.
See.
The one is that for meal times or for children to eat well, we need to plan. And I maybe should have mentioned it in the beginning when I said go and read up on good nutrition, but it's really important to plan the meals. And it's not separate to you as well. You plan one meal, but in that you consider that you've got a toddler that's going to eat with you. So planning is really very important. When it comes to snacks, it's really important that we look at that. Now, I think for the past year, most of us have been working from home or we've been at home. Things were a bit different, but once we go back to work now, what often happens is we pick the children up from creche in the afternoon, quickly run into the local shop to get whatever we need for the following day or for dinner tonight. And babies or the toddler is in the trolley and he's hungry, he's irritated, he's probably a bit tired as well. And he starts crying and screaming and do all sorts of things. And we as parents then just take the closest thing that we can put there in their mouths. And I've seen it so often. And then we expect this very same child to go and eat an hour and a half later. But he's just had a snack. So it's very important that we plan for snacks. And if the child is at school, I really want to recommend that you ask the teachers at school what time is their last snack. So most of the schools will have a snack, but try and have it almost as late as possible. If you pick your child up at 5 o'clock, make sure they give the snack at around 4. Then they won't be as hungry when you get into the shop. You won't have to give him something that's probably not as nutritious. Even if you pack a snack, that's also okay. And perhaps that's another way of doing this. Make sure you've got a snack box in the car, and that could be small things. It could be a Previta, just something small that they can snack on. But we need to consider that when the kids are snacking, that they will not, and it's right before, they shouldn't eat at least an hour before the meal time starts. So just consider that. Also, coming back to the bribing part, I know, I understand. I understand why we do this, but I really want to encourage parents not to bribe children with food. We really create a very bad perception with these kids, and we're actually training emotional eaters. If you think about it, when a child cries, especially toddlers, we give them something sweet. When something bad happens, we give them something to eat. We say, well, if you stop crying now, we're going to have some ice cream a bit later. And there's nothing wrong with ice cream. But the problem is that we get into this habit of when I'm not feeling well, I need to eat something. So this bribing thing is really important. Also, not to bribe. If you finish your food, you can have dessert, because that's another thing that we do to get the children to finish the plate of food. Rather think about things that you can do together. Is there a game that he likes or she likes to play? And say, well, if you finish your food tonight, we're going to play this game. We're not going to eat something else. We're going to play this game. Or, here's a snack. I see that you're not hungry. And it also talks about to the food wastage is keep that plate of food. If they are hungry half an hour later, and this often happens, then you throw the food away. Half an hour later, they come and they say they're hungry and they want a piece of bread with some whatever on it. Rather keep that plate of food, cover it very nicely, put it in the fridge. If you have a microwave, you can eat it. You have this food now. And in that way, you are taking away this bribery thing, this emotional attachment that we create with food. And this bribery also then with food then falls away. So, yeah, I suppose it's still a bit of bribery, but now it's about spending time together. It's I'm going to read your favorite story tonight, or we're going to play a game, or something to that effect. But I think we just need to start thinking outside important for the child and for his long-term relationship with food. Talking about snacks, make sure there's a lot of fruit. Our kids don't eat enough fruit and vegetables. We've just seen the recent data now. Our kids don't eat fruits and vegetables. It could be that you cut an orange in quarters and give them the little quarter. They don't have to eat a full orange. Or if it is an apple, cut it in quarters, put some, sprinkle some orange juice over it, or even lemon juice to prevent it from turning brown.
Yeah.
And have that and give that to them. So it depends on what we have in the house. If you're not having these things in the house, they're not going to eat it. And then we can't expect our children to eat healthily if we don't actually have those things in the house.
Wow, that's so insightful, especially the driving part and the emotional eating. I think that's really important. And I think my toddler, he really struggles with eating veggies more than fruit. He loves fruit. But then when it comes to veggies, then it might be a bit harder. What are your thoughts on hidden veggies in food? I know some people, it's like a conflicting topic thing.
Yes, it is. You know, and I'm probably sitting on the fence with this. I don't mind hidden
Okay.
veggies. Because often it's a way of at least getting them to eat the veggies. And we have a program in our Nestle for Healthy Kids program that we called Add a Little More Goodness. And
Okay.
perhaps that's something to think about is, what can I do? So when we start talking about good nutrition, it's not about making big changes. If your child hasn't been eating vegetables, you cannot expect him now, as of this afternoon, after this show, he's now going to eat broccoli and and what do you call these, sprouts and all sorts of things. He's not going to eat the Brussels sprouts. So, sorry, my son calls them brokkelse spruiten in Afrikaans.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a joke in our family. But we cannot expect them to start eating it if you've never given it to them. So, and then it's a good way of cutting it fine, maybe changing the shape a bit, add it to the meat often, or if you have some rice. In many of our cultures, rice is a staple. So add the veggies in there, and it's perfectly normal because we eat it like that anyway. So I think that's a good way of doing that. And then eventually you can introduce them. And again, if they're part of the cooking process, they will see this is actually broccoli that I'm adding to the food without realizing that they're now going to eat that. Coming back to add a little more goodness, start small. And I think this is my message to the parents today is start small. Don't expect miracles overnight. But if you start small, add a little more goodness every day, it's perfect. It's going to work that way. So if they only eat a quarter of an apple or a quarter of a veggie today, that's okay. They've eaten it. Tomorrow or the day after that, it might be half of that. So really important that we are not so hard on ourselves. I think as parents, we are extremely hard on ourselves when it comes to nutrition, once again, because that's the only thing we've got control over. But don't be so hard on yourself. Start with a little bit and just add a little more goodness every day. And in that way, we're going to cultivate healthy children.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I think there is just another question here. I don't want to miss any questions. Um, Lately, my 2.5-year-old is suddenly hungry at bedtime and turns the house down in tears. How do I avoid this?
So
Yeah,
it's a
that's good.
2.5-year that's hungry when he goes to bed. So
Yeah.
depending on what time he's had dinner, if he had,
Yeah.
and depending on what time he goes to bed, these kids normally eat between 2 and 3 hourly. They still, you know, we jokingly talk about the 4 hourly feeds when they're babies. They still do that. So anything between 3 and 4 hours, they will still eat. So if you have a very early dinner, and let's say your dinner is at 5 and they go to bed at 8, it's 3 hours since they last eaten. So it's possible that they might feel a bit peckish. So one of the things that you can do is either just give them half a glass of milk to drink. Milk is a very good food because it contains all the nutrients, and what it really helps to set, I normally say it settles them. It's like a nighttime feed, but they just drink it from a glass, not from a bottle or anything. They can drink from cups at 2.5, and just a little bit to like I would call it, settle them and see if that works for them. If it has been a long period since he's eaten, maybe just once again a Previta or a slice of brown bread or just half a slice of bread, maybe with some peanut butter on, could help. If this continues, you know, it's important to always look out for why is this happening? Has it started suddenly? It could be a phase. Also, we must remember that kids go through growth spurts. And when they go through these growth spurts, they eat more. And we then obviously have to give them a bit more food, but just keep an eye on it, because if they're out of the growth spurt, we also need to reduce the intake again. Otherwise, they're going to become overweight. Yeah, that would be my recommendation. Look at the time period since dinner and when the child goes to bed. And if they continue to be hungry, really a half a cup of milk, and I'm talking about like 125 mils of milk, could actually settle in then for the evening.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned a few food types now. So with what would you then suggest would be go-to food types for maybe healthy weight gain?
So healthy weight gain is an important thing, and every child grows differently, but we've got a Road to Health card, and I think every mother has that and should have that. When the baby's born, we get that card. And they need to follow the line that they are born on. So apart from the preterm babies that are very tiny, we talk about adjusted weight and age there. But for normal, healthy, full-term infants, when they're born on a specific line, it's important that they follow that line. Now, when it comes to good growth, when children have small portions, a variety of food, they will not be underweight. They will continue to eat. If there's food in the house, the kid will eat it. And I really want to encourage parents, because that's a question I often get: my child doesn't eat anything. And I'm saying to moms, don't worry, they are eating. You're just not realizing how much they are eating. But if the food is there, they will eat. But we are concerned, and the problem with overweight is that it's not necessarily the good food that they are eating. It's often more about the fact these other things that they are eating, the snacks, these things that we buy when we're in the shop, and I just want to treat him, and there's nothing wrong with the treat, and I really want to encourage parents it's fine. We don't want children not to grow up with any sweets or with any cake, because once they get to a birthday party, then we sit with all the trouble afterwards. So it's okay to introduce it to them, but that should not be the focus of the diet. So if they have a treat once a week, that's perfectly fine. My children, there was always treats in the house, but they got so used to it that they didn't eat it. And they made their choices. So it's important that we consider that it's not, again, those treats are, everybody shares in them. It's not just for the child. I think that's important, because when they start living on the treats, that's when we see the overweight. Also, I think what's very important for our kids is to be physically active. I think we forget that the TV, as unfortunately in our society, became the best caretaker of children. So kids sit in front of the TV for hours, and they shouldn't be. And we should really limit the screen time that the kids have, not just in front of the TV, but they play on mommy's cell phone, they play on the tablets, they have all these things. So we really need to reduce that screen time and get our kids more physically active. And if they are physically active, I guarantee you, your child will not be overweight.
Okay. And there are also quite a few healthy treats as well. Lots of organic treats that have now come to the surface now. Okay, so let me just check if... oh my goodness, I think I missed a few. Okay, my boy prefers fruit over food. Can this have a negative impact? Because I know fruit does have lots of sugar in as well.
Just on that question, it is true. The fruit, the sugar in fruit is called fructose. So it's the fruit sugar. It's naturally present. You can't do anything about it. It's there. And kids prefer fruit to veggies because it's sweeter. And we've got a natural tendency. We're born with this innate preference for sweet foods. So again, there, what I would recommend that you do is introduce the sweeter vegetables. with the fruit. So you can start with carrots or even pumpkin or some of the sweeter veggies, keeping in mind not to add more sugar to that. That's something that we do. Many of our grannies used to cook that way with lots of sugar and butter and all of those things. No, if you steam it quickly in the microwave, it's still sweet. So try those. And then the other important thing is give the not so sweet food before the sweet food. If you give the sweet food first, the not so sweet food is going to taste even less sweet. Whereas if you turn it around, they won't pick it up. So it's a fact. So I would really recommend that you try and do that. Keep the fruit thing rather for the dessert part. So we're first going to have this and then we're going to have the fruit. Instead of swapping it around. So that's just, a tip for moms out there.
That's good. That's good. Okay, yeah, that's that. And then I think we got that question. Okay, so I don't think anybody has any other questions. Yeah, I guess with everything, all the options that there are, all the solutions that there's, that you've mentioned also, it can also be a bit overwhelming to gather everything together and then implement it. But I guess starting slowly and then repetition, like you said, is very important to not become too overwhelmed with everything. Yeah, and I know that a lot of parents can feel alone in their journey with nutrition and, the diets, and there can be a lot of shame also when it comes to your kids not wanting to eat certain things or the behaviors that goes along with that. So do you have anything that you would like to reassure moms with and parents with in general?
Yes,
With regards to that?
I think I do. The one thing is, and you're quite right, it is overwhelming. And with that, I think I come back to just add a little more goodness every day. As parents, we are trying the best we can with what we have and with what we know. And rest assured that this is your best and that's good enough. And I think that's very, very important. It's just, you need some self-talk as parents often. It's really, I'm actually doing my level best and that's good enough. And then the other thing is try not to compare children. As much as you and I are different, so are children. They develop at different stages. They talk at different stages. They eat differently. And the more we start comparing, the more this guilt factor creeps in and we feel inferior and all of these things. It's okay if your child doesn't eat broccoli. It's okay. He probably likes beans. And that's okay too. So, and eventually they all grow up. As long as we keep on adding this little more goodness every day, we are doing our best. And I really want to encourage parents, go to the Nestle Baby and Me website. There's lots of advice and tips for you there. And again, from my side, also as a mom, and I can tell you my children are now big, over 21, I still have guilt. So and now it's guilty. You feel guilty about something else now, but there's always guilt. So I've got to understand we live with this. So that is what it is. But you as a mom are really, and parents, dad, mom, you're really doing your level best. And that's good enough.
Yeah, I think that's so important, is that our children's behavior is not a reflection on us as parents, because we are the best. And I like that what you said, it's just to add a little more goodness at a time. So yeah, I think that is it, and I don't think there are any more questions. Oh wait, there's one last question. Should I watch what I give my 13-month-old who suffers from eczema? Oh yeah, most probably.
Yes, that is true. If the child suffers from eczema, I'm sure you've been to the doctor a couple of times. If it is a food allergy, obviously you would need to avoid those foods. And another tip for parents is read the labels. There's a lot of these, especially when it comes to allergies, some of these what we call allergens, the things that cause the allergy in foods, and it's hidden in the food. So very important, read the label. Also, coming back to snacking, read the label, see what's in there, and see the amount of energy that that snack is going to provide, and ease it with the energy that we're going to give. So that's just something else to keep in mind. But especially for allergic children, it's important that we read the food labels, and it's probably wise to go and speak to a registered dietitian to actually get proper advice on the nutrition of the children, because the moment we exclude certain foods from their diet, we're also excluding certain nutrients that are critical for their growth and development.
That's so important. Okay, I think we have come to the end of our chat, and I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time this morning to give such insightful information. It's been really helpful, and I'm sure it's helped a lot of parents who are watching as well. And I think this video will be posted to the MamaMagic page, so you can rewatch it again. And don't forget to check out the Nestle Baby and Me website. So yeah, thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for chatting to us again. This information was really helpful. Thank you everyone for joining in. Yeah, have a wonderful day further.
Thank you, and you too. Hi, all the best.
Thank you so much. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Oh, I think you need to end.